Good evening, everyone. Today is June 23rd, 1940. This is MRML Nightly News, here to give you all the latest important information you need. My name is Linda, and the first story of tonight is the story of war, of success, and of defeat for the French people. The Germans' intrusion of the French territory started with the Casse-Ciel Plan. Their attack started on May 10th as they broke through the Ardennes forest to bypass the Maginot Line. Thus the invasion of France and of other Low Countries commenced. The Germans quickly overwhelmed Dutch forces, and the French territories were very unprepared. French sources say roads should have been impossible to pass for the Germans, but their high-quality machinery allowed them to breeze past the roads and use the bombers effectively. Seeing the low chances of any win in this invasion, the French started their retreat. Vice Admiral Bertrand Ramsay created a plan called Operation Dynamo. From May 27th to June 4th, at the Dunkirk invasion, the civilians used whatever vessel possible, and including sailing boats, rowboats, and others, and started the evacuation of French soldiers across the English Channel. On May 22nd, German High Command issued a halt on the advancement, ultimately allowing for 338,000 soldiers to be evacuated. Although the French lost this battle, their high rate of evacuation seemed like a win for the French people. The French resistance collapsed on June 5th, with the capital being overtaken on June 14th. The French people had 7 weeks to attack and retreat, taking a large toll on the French people. This conversation will continue throughout tonight's show, but now for a message from our sponsor.
Which marked the end of the Great War with the armistice that was signed on November 11, 1918. Just yesterday, this site was used once again to end another dreadful battle. Correspondents from both France and Germany gathered to sign an armistice that recognized that Germany had in fact had a successful invasion of France. Today we have William Shire here with us to recount his findings of this event. Can you introduce yourself to our audience and tell us what you saw?
Well, to start off, I am an American journalist and a war correspondent who has witnessed several events over the past few days. Just yesterday, I saw all the representatives meet here at this exact place. I paid special attention to Hitler to see how he would respond to the event.
Can you describe Hitler for us?
I was but 50 yards from him, and I saw him through my glasses as though he were directly in front of me. I have seen that face many times through the great moments of his life. But yesterday, it was afire with scorn, anger, hatred, revenge, triumph. He stepped off the monument and contrived to make even this gesture a masterpiece of contempt. He glanced back at it, contemptuous, angry. Angry you almost felt because he could not wipe the awful, provoking lettering with one sweep of his high Prussian boot. He glanced slowly around the clearing, and as his eyes met ours, we grasped the depth of his hatred. But there was triumph there too. Revengeful, triumphant hate. Suddenly, as though his face were not quite giving complete expression of his feelings, he threw his whole body into harmony with his mood. He swiftly threw his hands on his hips, arched his shoulders, and planted his feet wide apart. It was a magnificent gesture of defiance, of burning contempt for this place here, and all that it has stood for in the 22 years since it first witnessed the humbling of the German Empire.
That must have been quite the experience. Can you tell us what it was like when the French arrived on the scene?
It was a grave day in the life of France. The French kept their eyes straight ahead. Their faces were solemn, drawn. They were a picture of tragic dignity. They walked stiffly to the car and were met by 2 German officers and the chief of the Führer's headquarters. The Germans saluted, the French saluted. The atmosphere was what Europeans call correct. There were salutes, but no handshakes.
Wow, that must have been quite intense. Did the meeting last long?
Actually, no. Hitler stayed for all of about 12 minutes before leaving for his car while the German band played the national anthem. The French, like figures of stone, remained seated at the table, a German general with them. He read to them the detailed conditions of the armistice, as they sat there, defeated-looking and sad.
Yesterday must have hurt France's already damaged morale. Thank you for coming here and recounting the details of yesterday's meeting to us. That day will surely go down in history as a major event, and now, in some ways, it's like we've witnessed it ourselves. We will now go back to the United States and talk with an acclaimed expert on these recent events.
Today we have expert Dr. Miranda T. Stevens, Ph.D., to inform us about the details of the recent Battle of France and the relations between France and Germany.
It is a pleasure to be here today for this interview. I am happy to answer any inquiries you may have on recent events in France. To start off, let us review some basic background information. The Battle of France, as we are all calling it, began on May 10th, as you must know, and is now coming to a close on today, June 23rd, as the armistice was just signed between Germany and France yesterday. It essentially gives Germany the ability to occupy the north and west of France. It seems, however, that France is being forced to these conditions considering the following. There have been over 520,000 casualties, approximately 160,000 German and Italian, and over 360,000 French, British, Belgian, and Dutch, with an additional 1.9 million prisoners of war. The Germans were incredibly brutal, having destroyed almost 1,800 tanks, I believe, the majority by artillery and the rest by aircraft and mines. Reports state that survivors saw French and Italian troops retreating through the English Channel to escape the brutality of the Germans. It was absolutely horrific. Keeping this in mind, I would like to discuss the French defense policies and the way in which they relate to the German strategy. Prior to the battle during the interwar decades of 1919 to 1939, France's defense policy was overall defensive and non-aggressive. The Maginot Line, created between 1929 and 1937, guarded the Franco-German frontier, but it failed to protect the Franco-Belgian frontier. This action by Germany may be similar to its invasion of Poland in September of last year, but to a lesser extent. Unfortunately, the French were unsuccessful in defending themselves, as we can see in the number of casualties. Prior to the war, France was surprisingly prepared for war in terms of strategy. France, however, was the opposite politically. The legacy of the bitter social and political feuding of the Popular Front era meant it would be impossible to form a truly national government that would last. That's all the information I have on the subject right now. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Miranda, for that insightful analysis. This concludes our discussion of the recent events in France. Next, we'll hear from an actress in the recent film, Rebecca, after a message from our sponsor.
When it comes time for lunch in the Smith home, Susan knows that Spam will always feed her family. She always makes delicious Spam sandwiches for little Jenny, because she knows that Spam will help little Jenny grow up smart, beautiful, and endearing. What a way to pass the middle of your day. Make a Spamwich today.
Welcome back. I'm here today with actress Joan Fontaine from the movie Rebecca, which was released late March. It's only been 2 months since the release. How have the public been reacting?
Ah yes, everyone has been so kind and wonderfully supportive. Audiences have been engaged in the plot, and all the people I've spoken to have told me what a wonderful job everyone did.
I see. Would you, without giving away too much, give us an idea as to what the plot of the film is?
Oh, it's a lovely and suspenseful plot. My character meets this man Maxim in the south of France, and they quickly fall in love. When the time has come for the two of them to separate and go to different countries, Maxim asks my character to marry him, and of course she agrees, becoming Mrs. De Winter. Of course, this is only the beginning. Mrs. De Winter quickly discovers that the late Mrs. De Winter Rebecca, had died only a year prior and that everyone is still stuck in the past, so to speak. My character feels as though she will never be able to escape the legacy left by late Mrs. De Winter, and this causes her a lot of heartache and trouble. Unfortunately, I cannot tell of anything else without giving away too much, but do know that when the truth about Rebecca's true identity is revealed, it is quite the shock for everyone.
Why, that sounds delightful. I'm sure anyone who goes to see this film will find it absolutely enthralling. I'm sure everyone is curious about the next question. In the film, Mrs. Danvers, played by Judith Anderson, is a creepy character who seems to embody all the mystery and danger surrounding Rebecca. Is Judith anything like that in real life?
I'm so glad you asked. Judith was always very charming and sincere, nothing like Mrs. Danvers at all. I loved watching her slip into character during filming because she was just brilliant about it every time. Judith and I shared very many laughs and got along just fine. I look forward to all other work she will do with us in the future.
Well, I'm sorry to say, but that's all the time we have here tonight. Joan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I encourage everyone to go see Joan Fontaine and Lawrence Oliver's movie, Rebecca. Let's go see The Evening Weather Report with Glory.
Thank you, Linda. Well, folks, it looks like tomorrow's going to be a wet one. We have a storm moving in from the northwest. The wind bringing this storm in is cool, so expect cool showers and lower temperatures all throughout tomorrow. The areas most affected will be New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Bring an umbrella with you and be careful out there. Good night and good luck. I was but 50 yards from him and saw him through my glasses as though he were directly in front of me. I've seen that face in many parts of his life. But yesterday...
Well.
North and east of... Oh, not the north and east, it's the north and west. Also, my nose is itchy.
Oh, I thought...
All right.
No, don't record.
Not that far. Oh my gosh, she's looking all the way up.
You're not supposed to be in my point of view.
No, we're not, but I want her face.
Are you paused? Please tell me.
Don't put both on! Lily, she has to eat from one of those sides.
Okay, what do you want me... Of his feelings, he threw his whole